Hey boys, it's HarmNone. Today we're going to be going over the top 10 best offensive vehicles in Grand Theft Auto Online. Now when I say offensive, I'm not meaning like it's going to offend people. I'm meaning vehicles that you can take on the offensive against other players or AI NPCs in Grand Theft Auto Online. These are going to be some of the best vehicles to use against all of those things. We're going to start off with number 10. Alright guys, starting off with number 10, we have the Insurgent Pickup. Now the Insurgent Pickup Custom is a great offensive vehicle in my opinion. It's also a great defensive vehicle. However, I do feel like the Insurgent Pickup Custom is a little bit more offensive oriented. Mostly because of the machine gun that it has on the top of it, but also it does have a proximity mine dropper, which obviously if you're getting chased, you can use those to board off enemies pretty easily. You can also use them in a pretty offensive manner. If you're fighting somebody and you want to set a little trap for them around a corner, you just, drop a couple proxy mines, wait for them to come around, and then just ambush them. Now, my Insurgent Pickup Custom right now has heavy armor on it, which means the occupants inside of the vehicle do not have the ability to shoot out of it. However, if you did have medium armor on the Insurgent Pickup Custom, everybody within the vehicle does have the ability to shoot out of it at opponents. Now, of course, the Insurgent is also very well armored, so you should be able to fight people for quite a long time so long as you don't get killed out of the Insurgent. For the most part, this thing will keep you protected, especially from missiles, and it will allow you to go after people for pretty much as long as you want until the vehicle blows up, or like I said, you get shot out of it. Overall, the Insurgent Pickup Custom is an absolutely fantastic vehicle in GTA Online. You guys should definitely pick one up if you don't have one already. Anyway guys, that's it for number 10. Let's move on to number 9. Alright guys, next up at number 9 we of course have the Sparrow. Now I know what you're thinking, wow, the Sparrow, really? There are a couple of reasons which I feel like make this thing a pretty good offensive vehicle in Grand Theft Auto Online. First of all, obviously it is equipable with homing rockets, which are very, very good. They are also completely spammable, by the way, so they're pretty lethal. They definitely can be pretty lethal, at least if you're using them correctly. On top of that, the Sparrow is also the fastest helicopter in Grand Theft Auto Online, so if you're chasing somebody down, or if you've just killed somebody and you want to get away from them really, really quickly, you can of course do that with the Sparrow better than, well, any other helicopter in Grand Theft Auto Online. It definitely has its perks there. Of course, another reason why the Sparrow is a great offensive vehicle is if you need it, you can spawn it right beside you anytime you want, which is an absolutely fantastic feature to have, especially if you're fighting players and you need some homing missiles to, maybe eliminate some of your opponents really, really quickly. And of course, they're spammable, like I said before. You can spawn this thing right beside you and instantly get a vehicle with infinite rockets that you can spam at your opponents. Overall guys, the Sparrow is a fantastic offensive vehicle in Grand Theft Auto Online. The only thing that this thing doesn't do very well is, well, protect you. It is actually one of the weakest helicopters in the entire game, which is unfortunate, but I can see exactly why they did it. If they didn't, this thing would just be too overpowered. Anyway guys, that is it for number 9. Let's move on to number 8. Alright guys, at number 8 we have the APC. Now the APC is a really, really interesting vehicle in Grand Theft Auto Online. It's one of the only vehicles where you can switch from the passenger seat into the passenger seat and get access to a gun. Oh my god, I just blew up a can of Seminole. Oh my god, what have I done? Now the APC is on this list because, well, obviously, like I just said, you can switch from the passenger seat to the driver's seat and vice versa instantly, which is very, very good, especially if you're a solo player. Having the ability to get access to a gun when you're driving within about 5 seconds is pretty good, and of course you don't have to exit the vehicle to actually do that. In addition to that, the APC is also a little tiny bit armored, albeit it is not super armored, but it has some armor. It also has a proximity mine dropper very similar to the Insurgent Pickup Custom, so that can definitely be pretty useful. Of course, it is also a 4-seater, so the extra 2 players that don't sit in the front 2 seats sit in the back 2 seats. Well, obviously. Either one of them gets access to a machine gun that is mounted to the side of the vehicle. You can't really see it from the outside, but trust me, it's there. Now the machine gun's not that great, but it does have infinite ammo, and of course you can shoot out of it for pretty much as long as you want, until the vehicle gets blown up, of course. Overall guys, the APC is a pretty good offensive vehicle. Now it also has one more trick up its sleeve. If you guys didn't know, the APC is actually an amphibious vehicle. That means you can drive it right into the water and this thing will just cruise right through it. It doesn't matter at all. Of course, you can also shoot the gun while you are in the water, which is pretty unique. Overall, the APC is actually a pretty useful vehicle in my opinion. Definitely not the most useful, but it does have some really unique features, like the fact that it can go in the water, obviously. Anyway guys, that is it for number 8. Of course, we got the APC. Let's move on to number 7. Alright guys, at number 7 we have the Savage. Now the Savage, if you guys saw yesterday's video, you've probably already seen me talk about this thing. It is a very, very good helicopter in Grand Theft Auto Online, and it's a very gifted offensive helicopter because of one reason and one reason only. It has a Hydra style or a laser style autocannon on it, which absolutely melts everything that you put it up against. Now the problem with the Savage is the autocannon does not have very good range, albeit it's not the worst ever. It's actually pretty darn good, but it is not nearly as long as the range on the lasers version of this cannon or the Hydras. However, it doesn't always matter. Of course, being that it is a helicopter, you can usually get pretty close to whoever you're fighting with this, and you can use it very effectively because as long as you hit them, they're not going to be alive long enough to actually do anything to you. Now, the Savage is a little bit of a weaker helicopter. I believe this thing can occasionally survive one homing missile shot. I believe that has happened to me before. However, the helicopter will be very severely damaged after taking one homing missile shot, so you will probably have to crash it or land it very soon after you actually get shot. However, that's okay though, because of course the Savage is a Pegasus vehicle, so you can just call a new one right away, or of course you can turn this thing into a personal aircraft if you put it inside of the hangar, which is what I've done with mine, but of course you can still call it from Pegasus and get it that way. Anyway guys, the Savage is a pretty good helicopter, especially for just fighting players and online. Not really that great for anything else, but it is still a pretty good helicopter nonetheless. With that being said, let's move on to number 6. Alright guys, next up at number 6 we have the Laser. Now the Laser is of course a jet that you can steal from the military base in Grand Theft Auto Online for absolutely free. You just have to go in there, grab one and come out with it. Or of course you can buy it for $6,500,000, which is absolutely ridiculous, but hey, you can do it. That's what I did. I wouldn't recommend it, but you can do it. Now the Laser is basically a faster version of the Savage with a better ranged cannon, I guess. Now the Laser of course is one of the vehicles that I mentioned that the Savage shares its crazy good autocannon with. Now the Laser is a pretty darn good jet in GTA. One of the best jets in the entire game, of course. Now the Laser is very, very fast. It is very maneuverable, so it is really good for dogfighting and just generally fighting other aircraft in the game, as well as ground targets. The Laser doesn't discriminate. It will kill anything that you want it to kill, so long as you can hit them with the autocannon. Of course, the Laser also does have lock-on missiles, and it also has non-lock-on missiles, so if you want to do anything with those, you can of course do that. Overall, I'm not the biggest fan of the Laser ever, but it is a very, very good offensive vehicle, mainly because of the autocannon, but also its maneuverability and speed. The Laser, pretty good vehicle. Definitely wouldn't recommend buying it, but definitely go and steal one from the military base sometime and try it out for yourself. Anyway guys, that's it for number 6. Let's move on to number 5. Alright guys, at number 5 we have the B11 Strike Force. This is potentially the most offensively gifted plane in Grand Theft Auto Online, simply because of its armament. However, it's not the best offensive plane in the game, but I would say it is the second best. Now the B11 Strike Force has so many good features about it when it comes to actually attacking other players or NPCs of course, and we're going to go over all of those right now. So to start off with, the B11 does have an autocannon. However, the autocannon is not that good. It can one-shot cars, as you guys can see right now, and it does sound really, really cool. It sounds just like the A10 Warthog's cannon, which is pretty sick, I gotta say. However, I wish it did as much damage as the A10 Warthog's cannon because it just doesn't do that in GTA, man. It's not very good. It sounds like it's shooting super, super fast, but it's actually shooting very, very slow. So the cannon is not that great of a feature when it comes to the B11 Strike Force. However, the B11 does also have have homing rockets, which are very good, and they are spammable. There's no cooldown in between when you can shoot the rockets. Just hold down the shoot button and they will shoot. Now the B11 also has access to a 7 missile barrage, which is the same 7 missile barrage that the FH1 Hunter gets access to. This is really good. You could tear stuff up with this, man. I mean, the barrage is good on like any vehicle, but having it on a plane that's as fast and maneuverable as the B11 is really nice. Now the B11 of course also does have bombs, so if you need to bomb somebody you can do that as well. Albeit they're not my favorite thing to use, but having the ability to use them nonetheless is a pretty darn nice feature, I must say. Now the B11 is also very well armored, especially for a plane. This thing you can literally like slam it into the ground and it doesn't seem to care, so it's, you know, that is potentially a pretty good feature. It can also take several missiles before it will actually blow up, like homing missiles, which is nice as well. And another cool feature about the B11 is depending on how high up you are, how much altitude you have, the B11 will either fly faster or slower. Now when you get close to the ground, the B11 flies slower. When you are way up in the air, the B11 flies a lot faster, which is really cool. Obviously it helps to be going slower. When you're near the ground, you'll be able to see your target a little bit easier and maybe get a better shot on them. And then of course, when you just want to fly around and get somewhere really quickly, you of course just go further up in the air and you're back to flying super fast. So overall guys, the B11 is a fantastic plane. It costs $3.8 million, and for that price I do think that it is a very good plane. I'd say it's a lot more worth it to buy this thing in comparison to the Laser, for example, but that might just be my opinion. Overall, the Laser is probably the better jet, I would say, but the B11 is very good offensively. Anyway guys, there you have it. That is pretty much it for the B11 Strike Force at number 5. Let's move on to number 4. Alright guys, we're gonna make this one short and sweet. At number 4 we have the Oppressor Mark II. Now yes, you could argue that this thing is one of the best offensive vehicles in Grand Theft Auto Online, and I won't argue with you about it in the comments. I just absolutely cannot stand the Oppressor Mark II, so I didn't want to rank it very high because I don't really want to incentivize anyone else to buy this thing. It is really annoying. As you guys can see, mine's not even upgraded. It's literally got machine guns on it, so you can tell how much I actually use the Oppressor by just that. Now the Oppressor is very good offensively. Obviously, I'm pretty sure everybody who's watching this video right now, if you play GTA, you've probably been griefed by a Mark II at some point in your lifetime. The Mark II, when it is equipped with homing missiles, it basically has the best missiles in Grand Theft Auto Online. They can basically trace you around a 90-degree corner and go, you know, through a window in your insurgent and, you know, blow up, and it's ridiculous. This thing is really good. I don't recommend buying it because I don't want any more Mark II griefers out there, but hey, do what you will. The Mark II is very good offensively, one of the best vehicles in the entire game for sure, maybe even the best vehicle in the entire game, but I'm sure as hell not going to include it there because I hate this thing and I just don't feel like it deserves that recognition. Anyway guys, that is it for number 4. Let's move on to number 3. Alright guys, at number 3 we of course have the Khanjali, which is the best offensively oriented land vehicle in all of Grand Theft Auto Online, and I'm not even willing to argue about that. The Khanjali has so many features that just make it incredible when it comes to land vehicles and being, you know, just a menace to society in Grand Theft Auto Online. Like the Khanjali, it's just, well, it's literally a tank. I mean, it doesn't take much to, you know, understand why this thing is so good offensively. On top of that, it is very well armored, albeit it could be a lot better armored. I believe this thing actually shares the exact same armor as the APC, which is something along the lines of it can take around 6 to 8 homing missiles, I believe, and I want to say like 5 to 6 RPGs. I could be wrong on those figures, but I am pretty sure it's somewhere in that ballpark. Now, of course, the driver gets access to the main cannon, which is just, it's great. It's pretty much as good as you can get for a land vehicle in GTA. Obviously, we're about to do a Faggio delete right here. As you can see, it works on pretty much the general population, like no problem at all. Sorry, Sultan, it had to be done. The Khanjali also does have the ability to equip it with the railgun main cannon, which is what I have. This allows you to make a charged shot with it, which allows it to shoot a little bit further than the regular cannon would. It is nice to have occasionally, however, it will cost you a lot of money, so it's not always worth it, especially if you're on a budget. Now, on top of that, the Kinjali also has a proximity mine dropper on it, which, like we discussed earlier with the APC and the Insurgent Pickup Custom, it's a nice feature to have for sure. Now, the passenger of the Kinjali gets access to the 50 cal turret, which you can see on the top of this thing, which is very, very good, by the way. You can pretty much shoot down aircraft like it's absolutely nothing with that, or of course other ground targets. If you have a good passenger in with you, they can make sure that nobody sneaks up on you and put sticky bombs on the back of this thing. You can shoot people off with Presser Mark IIs with it pretty easily as well. Overall, it's very, very good. Now, in addition to that, the Kinjali is of course a 4-seater, so the extra 2 players that sit within the Kinjali get access to the 2 grenade launchers on either side of the turret. They're very good, let's just say that. And of course, there's 2 of them, so that definitely helps out for sure. Now, the Kinjali does have its trade-offs. It is very, very slow, so you can really only use this thing against players who are on foot. If you're trying to chase somebody in a Kinjali, I'm gonna tell you right now, man, you might as well hop out, go get in a helicopter or something and get over closer to them, then kill them, and then spawn your Kinjali, because if they have a car, literally even a car off the street, they're gonna outrun you in the Kinjali like very, very easily. Anyway guys, that is pretty much it for number 3. Of course, we have the Kinjali. Let's move on to number 2. Alright guys, at number 2 we have the FH1 Hunter. Now, the FH1 Hunter is the best offensive helicopter within Grand Theft Auto Online. This thing is an absolute menace. And honestly, you could argue that this thing could be the number 1 vehicle on this list, and I will not argue with you about that. I think it very easily could be. However, the vehicle that I've picked at number 1 is just a little bit better in a couple of ways, in my opinion. However, that's not to discredit the Hunter. This thing is absolutely awesome. As I mentioned before with the Strike Force, this thing gets access to a 7 missile barrage, despite that it has 8 missiles, which really makes me angry. I don't know why Rockstar did that, but anyways. And it also gets access to homing missiles, which are again completely spammable, which is very, very nice. Now, the pilot also gets access to bombs, which can be pretty useful in case you, well, need to bomb somebody. I mean, you never know when you're going to need to do that, right? So you do have that option with the Hunter, which is very nice to have. Now, the Hunter is also one of the fastest helicopters in the game, within the top 5 for sure. And the real offensive capabilities start when you have a passenger in this helicopter with you. Once you have a passenger in this thing, they get access to the 30mm autocannon that's on the bottom of it there that you guys can see right now. That thing is absolutely lethal. It's disgusting how good it is. It has very, very good range, and it does have the ability to one-shot any player that it touches. So it's pretty darn good, and like I said, you get pretty good range with it too, so you don't really have to be too close to the person to risk getting shot down. It's pretty darn good. Now, the Hunter as well also is a armored helicopter, which allows it to take 3 homing missiles before it will actually blow up. Very, very good, very nice, you love to see it. Overall, the Hunter is the 2nd best helicopter in Grand Theft Auto Online, in my opinion. And it certainly is the best offensive-oriented helicopter within the entire game. The Hunter is definitely a vehicle that I recommend if you're looking to go and wreak havoc in some lobbies. Again, don't be a griefer, but if you want to go and have some fun with a new helicopter in the game, the FH1 Hunter is the most fun helicopter. Anyway guys, that is it for number 2. Let's move on to number 1. Alright guys, and at number 1 we of course have the Hydra. Now, the Hydra, in my opinion, is one of the best offensive vehicles in the game. Now, I am a little bit personally biased. I absolutely love the Hydra. If you guys saw my video yesterday, you'll know how I feel about the Hydra already, but if you haven't seen it, you should go check it out. Anyway guys, the Hydra is very, 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 very good. You can buy this thing for $3 million off of Warstock, and it is worth every single penny. Now, the Hydra has the same autocannon that the Laser and the Savage have, except it obviously has the same range as the Laser's autocannon instead of the Savage's. Now, what differentiates the Hydra and the Laser and makes the Hydra a lot better, in my opinion, is that the Hydra has a special mode that it can go into that is very, very useful on occasion. It of course has VTOL mode or hover mode. Now, say you're trying to fight somebody who's in an awkward little spot, for example, in between these 2 buildings, standing on that walkway up there. With a normal jet, you would have to come in here at full speed, take a couple shots at them for a few seconds, and then you'd have to get out of there really, really quickly. And you might crash into either of the 2 buildings on both sides, or maybe the building in the back there. You never really know. However, with the Hydra obviously and VTOL mode, if you want to, you can come in, go into VTOL mode, quickly come in here, absolutely spam everything on that bridge, and you will definitely kill the person, and you'll probably kill them faster than they'll be able to get a shot off at you to kill you. Occasionally, VTOL mode can actually get you killed because you think that you're going to get them, but you don't actually get them and they get you first. However, I do feel like the Hydra is a very, very useful offensive vehicle, especially if you're doing missions against NPCs and AI like Headhunter for example. But of course it is also very effective against actual players within GTA. I have used this thing so many times I can't even tell you how many, and I've loved pretty much every minute of it. The Hydra is honestly a solid vehicle. On top of that, the Hydra is also one of the fastest jets in the entire game, if not the fastest jet in the entire game. I can't really remember the exact rankings, but I do believe that the Hydra is within at least the top 5, if not the top 3. Overall, the Hydra is a super useful vehicle in my opinion. I know not everybody shares that opinion. It's not very great for dogfighting, so that is one drawback with the Hydra. It's just not fast enough, and it doesn't turn fast enough more than anything. So that definitely doesn't help when it comes to dogfighting. However, the cannon is very good, so occasionally you can win a dogfight just because the cannon is pretty much better than everything else unless you're fighting a laser. Overall, the Hydra is a fantastic plane that I would highly recommend picking up if you guys do not have one already. I am a super huge fan of this thing, I swear by it. And I can definitely vouch that the Hydra is one of the best vehicles in the entire game. Anyway guys, that is it for the top 10 best offensive vehicles in Grand Theft Auto Online. Let me know what you thought of my list in the comments down below. Let me know what you think I missed, because I definitely know that I missed a couple of things. Unfortunately, it is a top 10, so I kind of have to condense it down and exclude a few vehicles that may or may not be better than some of the ones that were on the list. Anyway guys, if you enjoyed this video, if you learned something, a like is of course very appreciated. Dislike if you didn't. Subscribe if you guys are new. Go and check out my top 10 best defensive vehicles in Grand Theft Auto Online. I will link that in the pinned comment down below, and I will see you all in the next video. Until then, take care. Peace.